Henry, what are you doing today? I'm hosting my soiree. You promised not to come.
Oh, bother.
Go home at once.
No, I came here on purpose, Mother.
But you mustn't. I'm serious, Henry. You offend all my friends. They stop coming whenever they meet you.
Nonsense. I know I have no small talk, but people don't mind.
Oh, don't they? Small talk indeed. But what about your large talk of ability? You mustn't stay.
I must have a job for you. A phonetic job.
No use, dear. I'm sorry, but I can't get round your vowels, and though I like to get your pretty postcards and your pattern shorthand, I always have to read the copies in ordinary writing you so thoughtfully send me.
Well, this isn't a phonetic job.
You said it was.
Not your part of it. You see, I picked up a girl.
Does that mean that some girl has picked you up?
No, I don't mean a love affair.
What a pity.
Why?
Well, you never fall in love with anyone under 45. When will you discover that there are some rather nice-looking young women about?
Don't bother. I cannot be bothered with young women. My idea of a lovable woman is something as like you as possible. I shall never seriously get into the habit of liking young women. Some habits lie too deep to be changed. Besides, they're all idiots!
Do you know what you would do if you really loved me, Henry?
Oh, what? Bother, marry, I suppose.
No, stop fidgeting and take your hands out your pockets. That's a good boy. Now, tell me about the girl.
She's coming to see you.
I don't remember asking her.
You didn't? I asked her. If you'd known her, you wouldn't have asked her.
Indeed, why?
You see, it's like this. She's a common flower girl. I picked her off of the curbstone.
And invited her to my soiree.
Oh, that'll be all right, Mother. I've taught her how to speak properly. Besides, she has strict orders as to her behavior. She's to keep to two subjects, the weather and everyone's health. Fine day and how do you do. Not to go on in things in general. That would be safe.
Safe? To talk about her health, about her insides? Perhaps about her outsides. Oh, how could you be so silly, Henry?
Oh, well, she must talk about something! Oh, that'll be all right, Mother. Miss Pickering's in it with me. I was sort of bet that I'll pass her off as a duchess in 6 months. I started on her some months ago, and she's catching on like a house on fire. I shall win my bet. She has a quick ear and has been easier to teach my middle-class pupils because she's had to learn a complete new language. She talks English almost as you talk French.
That's satisfactory at all events.
Well, it is and it isn't.
What does that mean?
Well, I've got her pronunciation right, but then you must take into account not only how a girl pronounces, but what she pronounces, and that's where I think
Mrs. and Miss Enynsford Hill.
Oh, God, no.
How do you do?
How do you do? My son, Henry.
Oh, your celebrated son. I've so longed to meet you, Professor Higgins.
Delighted.
How do you do?
I'll take my oath I've met you before somewhere. I've heard your voice before. Where was it? I haven't the go. Doesn't matter now. You'd better sit down.
I'm afraid my celebrated son has no manners. You mustn't mind him. I don't.
Not at all.
Oh, have I been rude? I didn't mean to be.
Colonel Pickering.
How do you do, Mrs. Higgins?
So glad you've come. Do you know Mrs. Enynsford Hill, Miss Enynsford Hill?
Has Henry told you what we've come for?
We were interrupted, damn it!
Oh, Henry, really?
Are we in the way?
No, you couldn't have come more fortunately. We want you to meet a friend of ours.
Oh, yes, we want 2 or 3 people. You'll do as well as anybody else.
Mr. Enynsford Hill.
Oh, God, another of them.
How do you do, Mrs. Higgins?
Very good of you to come, Colonel Pickering.
How do you do?
I don't think you've met my son, Professor Higgins.
How do you do?
I've met you before somewhere. Where was it?
I don't think so.
I don't remember anyhow. You'd better sit down. Well, here we are anyhow. What the devil are we going to talk about until Eliza comes?
Henry, you're the life and soul of the Royal Society soirees, but really are trying on more commonplace occasions.
Oh, am I? Very sorry. I suppose I am, you know.
I sympathize. I haven't any small talk. If people would only be frank and say what they really think.
Oh, Lord forbid.
But why?
What they think they ought to think is bad enough. But what they really think would break up the whole show. I mean, do you really think it would be agreeable if I came out right now with what I really think?
Is it so very cynical?
Cynical? Who the dickens said it was cynical? I just mean it wouldn't be decent.
Oh, surely you don't mean that, Professor Higgins.
We're all savages, more or less. We're supposed to be civilized and know all about poetry and philosophy and art and science. But do any of us know the meanings of these names? I mean, what do you know of poetry? What do you know of art? What do you know of art or science or anything else? What the devil do you imagine I know of philosophy?
Or of manners, Henry.
Miss Doolittle.
Oh, she's here, Mother. It's this one.
Hello, Mrs. Higgins. Mr. Higgins told me I might come. Quite right. I'm very glad indeed to see you.
How do you do, Miss Doolittle?
Oh, Colonel Pickering, is it not?
I feel sure we've met before, Miss Doolittle. I remember your eyes.
How do you do?
My daughter, Clara.
How do you do? How do you do?
I've certainly had the pleasure. My son, Freddy.
How do you do?
Yes, it all comes back to me now. Covent Garden. What a damned thing.
Henry, please don't sit on my end table. You'll break it. Will it rain, do you think? The shallow depression in the west of these islands is likely to move in the easterly direction. There are no indications of any great change in the barometrical situation.
How awfully funny.
What is wrong with you, young man?
Oh, killing.
I sure hope it won't turn cold. There's so much influenza about. It runs right through our family regularly every spring.
My aunt died of influenza, or so they said. But it's my belief that they'd done the old woman in. Done her in? Oh yes, Lord love you. Why should she die of influenza? She come through the diphtheria right enough the year before. I saw it with my own eyes, so fairly blue with it she was. Everyone thought she was dead, but my father, he kept ladling gin down her throat till she come to so sudden that she nearly bit the bowl off the spoon.
Dear me!
What call would a woman with her strength have to die of influenza? What was to become of a new straw hat that was supposed to go to me? Somebody pinched it, and what I say is, them that pinched it done her in.
What does doing her in mean?
Oh, well, that's the new small talk. To do a person in means to kill them.
Well, surely you don't believe your aunt was killed.
Do I not? Them that lived with her would have killed her for a hat pin, let alone a hat.
But it can't have been right for your father to pour spirits down her throat like that. It might have killed her.
Oh, not her. Gin was mother's milk to her. Besides, he'd poured so much down his own throat that he knew the good of it.
Do you mean he drank?
Oh, drank, my word, something chronic.
Oh, how dreadful for you.
Oh, no, not a bit. There was never no harm in it from what I could see. I'm always more agreeable when he had a drop in. When he was out of work, my mother used to give him 4p and tell him not to come home until he'd drunk himself all cheerful and loving-like. You see, there's lots of women that have to make their husbands drunk to make them fit to live with. You see, it's like this. If a man has a bit of a conscience, it always takes him when he's sober and makes him low-spirited. A drop of boozing just takes that right off and makes him cheerful and loving-like. What are you sniggering at?
The new small talk, you do it so awfully well.
If I was doing it well, then what was you laughing at? Have I said something I oughtn't? No, not at all, Miss Doolittle. Oh, well, that's mercy anyhow, what I always say. Well, I must be going. So pleased to have met all of you. Goodbye, Mrs. Higgins. Goodbye, Colonel Pickering.
Goodbye, Miss Doolittle.
Goodbye, all.
Are you going to take a walk in the park, Miss
Walk?
Doolittle?
Not bloody likely. I'm going in a taxi.
But I simply just can't get used to the new ways.
It's all right, Mama, quite right. People will never think we go anywhere or know anyone if we are so old-fashioned.
I dare say I'm old-fashioned, but I do hope you won't begin using that expression, Clara. I've got accustomed to hearing you talk of men as rotters and calling everything filthy and beastly, though I do find it horrible and unladylike. But this last bit is really too much. Don't you think so, Colonel Pickering?
Oh, don't ask me. I've been away in the